this really cool art therapy techniques book that I was reading today, and I kind of wanted to try some, so I'm inviting you all to try this with me if you would like to. You don't have to share this with anybody. If you want to, you can absolutely do that. We're gonna do brain waves. Draw your brain waves. Think about your thought patterns, the way that your brain appears to function. For example, are your thoughts chaotic or calm? Are you able to control your thoughts, or do they run rampant? Do they tend to be positive or negative? Do you tend to think clearly, or are you forgetful and disorganized? Do you often act impulsively, or do you take time to process first and then act? So, the questions for exploration with this are, what do your brain waves look like? For instance, are they wavy, smooth, bright, or dull? Do the waves reflect your thoughts and or personality? Have the waves changed recently? So just kind of think about what your thought patterns have been like, and then just draw them out. Again, it doesn't have to be super precise and perfect. It's just an overall feeling or experience. So take a marker, whatever one you feel like, kind of. You can use multiple colors. You can use not a marker. And just start drawing your brain waves. I'm gonna give it like a couple more seconds here to finish up. Okay, great. We don't need to take forever with this. There's my brain waves. Interpret that however you will. I just want to make you feel like you're not alone and with whatever you drew. If yours looks totally different than mine, that's awesome. But that's my brain waves. Yeah. Okay.